Star Trek's replicator may be a ways off, but Skywalker is here today. I'm Tanya Hall for ZDNet, and joining me is Max Friefeld. He is the co-founder and CEO of Voodoo Manufacturing. Welcome, Max.
Thank you. It's great to be on the show.
What do you do at Voodoo Manufacturing?
So I am the co-founder and CEO of Voodoo Manufacturing. We founded Voodoo almost 3 years ago, and honestly, I do a little bit of everything.
What types of products and parts do you guys make?
So Voodoo is a contract manufacturer, and we make plastic parts on demand for customers. We have two main categories of clients. On one side, we do a lot of marketing and promotional products. This is everything from like a keychain to a trophy, or we do a lot of basically really custom branded swag. And then we also support a number of hardware companies like Kickstarter companies, consumer products companies, just manufacturing parts that go into their products.
So you're a different kind of manufacturer using 3D printing and robotics. How are artificial intelligence and robotics reinvigorating modern manufacturing?
So robotics, 3D printing, and AI are really all core to how Voodoo operates today. We're building kind of a new type of factory that hasn't existed before, and we're doing this on top of those technologies. So what this all really comes down to is the ability to integrate kind of top of the line, cutting edge software technologies into a manufacturing environment. Robotics, automation, all of these tools are really just ways to build a more agile and flexible factory using software.
Injection molding of plastic parts has been around a long time. And in fact, it's a fairly mature process. So what kind of cost benefits does 3D printing offer over injection molding, for example?
So injection molding was invented, almost 100 years ago and really started scaling in the 1950s in the US. And injection molding starts with a mold. And basically you take a mold which is machined out of steel or sometimes aluminum, and you put it in a machine that heats up plastic and injects that into the mold. That entire process, just getting started and creating your mold, usually costs at least $10,000 and can take a minimum of 6 weeks. And so by modern standards, that's very slow. I've actually seen production lines and molds that cost up to $1 million just to produce the mold to get started on your manufacturing run. Voodoo is founded on the principle of eliminating those startup costs. And so using 3D printers, which work directly from digital files, we don't need to create molds. So once I have a file, a digital representation of the part I'm going to produce, I can send it into our factory of almost 200 3D printers and get them up and running immediately. So our typical volumes right now are in the 1 to 10,000 unit range, and we produce those volumes in under 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of tolerances can you maintain in 3D printing compared to injection molding?
It really depends on the technology you're using. A core part of the technology that we've selected is that we can be cost competitive with injection molding. Our tolerances right now are about 0.4 millimeters compared to usually you're getting about 0.15 with injection molding. So it's a little bit lower accuracy and resolution, but this actually works for a ton of the projects that we work on. I think the other core principle of Voodoo is that we're built on top of easily swappable hardware. And so 3D printers are constantly improving. There are new ones coming out every 24 months. And we're actually replacing machines in our factory with the latest technology as it comes out so that we can improve our tolerances and accuracy over time.
What kind of materials can you use that would match up in terms of performance to injection molded plastics?
So with injection molding, you have a few core materials and then over 19,000 different formulations of plastics that you can put through an injection molding machine. 3D printers operate similarly. You have kind of a few core materials. One of the most common materials is PLA, which is a corn-based eco-friendly plastic. We use that very commonly and our customers love it. But there are other materials like nylon, ABS, and we have a few other materials that we're experimenting with right now. It really comes down to selecting the right plastic for the application. You have mechanical and thermal requirements, and we'll help you select the right plastic for your product.
You've recently launched something new. Talk about Skywalker.
So Skywalker was the introduction of a collaborative robotic arm into our factory of 3D printers. So really 3D printers themselves are kind of robots. There are a few motors, you connect them to a computer, you run some code, and they manufacture an object autonomously. We have a lot of tasks in our factory that we're trying to automate over time because they are very low skill, repetitive tasks that honestly nobody really wants to do anymore, especially in the United States. And so we've introduced Project Skywalker as a machine tending tool that will help us run the printers 24/7 without basically a human having to run those machines. One of the core tenets of kind of how we're building out our factory team is with this idea that we want everybody to be more of a maintenance employee that's running a system that we've built than a production employee. We usually joke about, there was this episode of I Love Lucy where Lucy and her friend Ethel are on a chocolate manufacturing line, and chocolate bars are whizzing by because they're a part of this production and they're checking them for quality. And they get behind. They're a core part of that production line. And so if they stop doing their job, the whole production line has to stop. So we think the future of manufacturing jobs is actually going to be, instead of a human on the production line physically interacting with every part that comes off the line, we have humans basically maintaining a system and helping us check to make sure that quality is in spec, fixing machines as they go down, et cetera. But the system itself produces all of the parts automatically without any people needing to be involved.
What type of advice would you have for someone who's seeking a career in manufacturing?
It depends on what your skill set is. So, if you're interested in robotics specifically, I think there are a lot of really interesting fields for you to go into. If you're looking to join as maybe an industrial engineer, or maybe start, on the factory line and work your way up into a management position, I would look for innovative manufacturing companies because honestly, things are going to change a lot in the next few decades. And if you want to build a career at your next company, you should be looking for the businesses that are integrating modern robotics and automation tools because you'll want to be learning those things today.
What types of 3D printers do you use today?
So we use MakerBot Replicator 2s, which were best in class now over 2 years ago. And we're actually experimenting with our next line of printers, which we'll probably be announcing in the next few months.
And you guys actually started there, right? That's how you got your impetus in wanting to do this type of work?
Yeah. A lot of the Voodoo founding team actually all worked at MakerBot. And we kind of incubated this idea while we were there. And at one point realized, hey, this should really be its own company. And so we reached an agreement with the MakerBot team and spun the business out in May 2015 and kind of went off totally on our own.
Max, I remember when everyone thought every household was going to have a 3D printer, and 3D printing was all the rage, and we were 3D printing everything, thinking this was going to be realistic, and that kind of excitement has waned off. So I guess my question is, how is 3D printing going to change manufacturing? Are we going to look at manufacturers like yourself to take over manufacturing, or are we going to do this ourselves?
That's a great question. We're strong believers in a semi-centralized model for manufacturing in the future. I can imagine a future with the Star Trek replicator where you can literally make anything you want in a small machine at home. We are decades, if not centuries away from that technology being ready. And so the reality is there's still a lot of things that go into manufacturing a product that can't be taken care of by a small box sitting on your desk. So the semi-centralized model is what we're building here. Small unit factories that are localized to where the parts that they're producing are going to be sent. And that footprint factory is something that's very easily to replicate wherever you need to put that factory. We kind of compare it to how server farms run today. If you look at a Facebook server farm, they have these massive facilities of computers running code that keep Facebook.com live. They have facilities across the US, one on the West Coast, one in the middle, one on the East Coast. And we can imagine the same thing happening with manufacturing, built on top of 3D printers.
Okay, Max, is 3D printing going to actually bring back manufacturing to the United States?
It's not just going to be 3D printing. I think there's a lot of work. It's more about robotics and automation. And essentially what we're looking at is reducing the cost of manufacturing goods so that we can be competitive with overseas countries like China again. Those jobs are gone, right? We have outsourced a lot of our manufacturing power to labor is incredibly cheap. And their labor is getting more expensive over time. But until we level the playing field by introducing heavy automation, nothing's going to happen. So we're actually very optimistic about the future of manufacturing here in the U.S. We think by heavily automating manufacturing, you can bring jobs back to the United States or to whichever country you're producing the parts for. But there's kind of this global problem that we are worried about, because every job that leaves China and comes to the U.S. is still a person in the world without a job. And so I think that's the greater conversation that we're thinking about long term.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Max, and I'm excited about the work that you're doing at Voodoo Printing and how you're changing the face of manufacturing. If somebody wants to connect with you, they want to find out more about the work that you do, how can they do that?
They should look at Voodoo Manufacturing. You can follow us at Voodoo MFG. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or you can always email us. Just email Voodoo Manufacturing. You go to our website at voodoomfg.com.
All right. Thanks again for your time. And if you want to follow me and more of my interviews, you can do that right here on ZDNet or Tech Republic, or maybe find me on Twitter. Yeah, I'm on Twitter too, Max. I'm at Tanya Hall Radio on Twitter, or find me on Facebook by searching for The Tanya Hall Show. Until next time.